Hey guys, Mr. Catlin here for day 5 NTI, and we have 15 questions on adding and subtracting rational numbers. And I'm going to jump right in here with the very first one. Just going to show my work as I go. And if you have questions, feel free to send those messages to me through email or Schoology. So, first one, we're doing 8/15 plus a negative 6/15. So since the denominators are the same, you know you're going to have 15ths on the denominator. And really all you're doing is what's in the numerator, which is 8 plus negative 6. And going back to what we've talked about before, it's been a while, I know, but if you start at 0 and then you go to 8 on the number line, and then if you want to add negative 6, it's going to go back this way 6, which would land you at positive 2. So the way that we've thought about it is if the signs are different and you're adding, you subtract their absolute values, and then whoever wins the sign battle, in this case positive 8 does, takes the sign. So this one would be 2/15, which would be C. All right, we're going to run through these pretty quick just because I don't want the video to go too long. All right, so 1/4 subtract a negative 3/4. And we've been using this rule a lot recently, is add the opposite rule. So if you got a minus, you can change it to a plus, but just make sure you opposite the following term or group. So this becomes a positive 3/4. And that's an elementary problem from there. So your denominators are the same, so you're good. You just got to do 1 plus 3, which is 4, or 1 whole. C for that answer. All right, next one. We have a negative 31 plus negative 7. All right, our rules are, and I guess I could have wrote this down at the top. If you're adding, our rules for adding is if the signs are the same, I can jot it down here. If the signs are the same, then you are going to add the absolute value. I'll put AB for absolute value. If the signs are different, so for example, if you're adding and one's positive and one's negative, like we had on the first problem, then you're going to subtract their absolute value. And you always take the sign of the one that has greater absolute value. So we're going to be negative. We know that from the 31 winning. And since the signs are the same, we add them. This would be negative 38. So that would be C. Lots of C's to start off here. All right, let's look at the next one. We have negative 12 plus a negative 8. And if you're not sure why that's happening, or some of you might get confused and think a negative times a negative is positive, but we're adding here. So imagine we're starting at 0 and we go back to negative 12. That is where we're starting. And then to go back another 8, because this is adding a negative, you go back another 8, that's going to end you at negative 20. Same signs the same, so you add them together. So you can use a number line to kind of help you get your foothold on some of these problems. That's always a good way to show work on how to get to the right answer. So negative 20 for number 4. And then they give you a number line for number 5, and it wants you to solve the problem. But unfortunately, the number line is not big enough to have the correct answer on there, which might be a little confusing. So I'm sorry about that. Should have vetted that problem a little better. Negative 4. Let's write it down over here to the side. We'll work it out. Negative 4, take away 10. Well, that's the same as negative 4 plus its opposite of negative 10. So when you change it to this, you can follow the rules that I wrote down earlier. The signs are the same. So the only way we're going to add them together. And 10 plus 4 is 14. And we take the sign of the one that has greater absolute value. So we get a negative 14. And of course, you can always, you can draw this kind of stuff. Okay, so if you start at negative 4 here and add or take away 10, you're going back 10 more. And that's why we end up at, we're going back 10 more. So that leaves us at negative 14. All right. All right, so that's a third of the way through. Let's look at the next one, number 6. So on number 6, it looked like, to me, like some of the earlier problems were a little tougher. So these might not be in the same order that you get them questioned on the document. Well, I don't know. We'll see. All right, number 6. Numbers that are greater than 0 are to the right of 0 on the number line. That's true, and those would be the positive numbers. Right here, see, positive numbers are to the right, like 1, 2, so on and so forth. Numbers that are less than 0, like -1, -2, those are negative numbers. So you got positives on the right, negatives on the left. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then number 8, which statement is true? Okay, so we just got to pick the one that's true. The absolute value of 3 is -3. Absolute value will never be negative. It's a distance. So that's not true. B, the opposite of 7 is 7. No, 7 is 7. 7's opposite would be -7. It's on the other side of 0. It's its opposite. Additive inverse is another word for that. C, the absolute value of 5 is equal to the opposite of 5. So the absolute value of 5, which is 5, is equal to the opposite of 5. Well, the opposite of 5 is -5. And that is not equal to the absolute value of 5. All right, so that's, to me, that's not true. Unless we got something mistake here that's made on this one, that one's not true. I'm leaning toward D, even though I haven't read it yet. The opposite of -4 is equal to the absolute value of -4. That's true. Okay, so the opposite of -4 would be at 4. All right, and that's equal to the absolute value, the distance that -4 is from 0. So that's true. That's the one you want to pick there on number 8, D. What is the value of this expression? So we've got, let's see, -4 plus 8 minus 5. Okay, first thing that I would want to do is add any opposites where I have a subtraction, just to kind of make sure I'm not losing any of my negative value. So we can start with -4 plus 8. When we do that part, the signs are different, so we have to subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. The positives win. So you get 4 from that interaction. And then you're still left to do a -5. And then when you get to this part, the signs are different, so you want to subtract. So 5 minus 4 is 1. And the negatives win that absolute value battle. So -1. If you were to visualize it on the number line, it would walk like this. You start at -4, right? And then you go up 8, which would put you all the way over here at +4, which is where we got there. And then you go back down 5, which lands you at -1, which is what our answer was, -1. So you can use that number line walk to kind of know which direction you're going, or you can use the rules. You know, at some point, using the rules is faster than drawing the number line, especially when the numbers are bigger. It's just, you know, you got to grow up at some point. Number 10. So Jillian borrowed $15 from her dad. She then babysat and earned $12. She gave her dad that money. How much does she still owe her dad? Well, you could think of this as a number line situation. If you borrow money, you're in the negative. You owe. So you go back 15. She owes her dad $15. Okay, from that point, she does some earning. Earning is a positive thing. So you're going to go up $12, but you do not have enough value to get out of the negatives. You're short the difference of these two absolute values, which is owing the dad still $3. Most people could do that without the number line. All right, and then a word problem for temperature. We have that. Excuse me. So the temperature outside was 15 degrees. It dropped to -12 at night. How much did the temperature? It's a big change. That's a big temperature change. Okay, we don't want, this is not a small temperature. It's going to be one of these, right? And you know, without even drawing this, you could say, okay, it dropped, so it's got to be the negative one. So like I'm already leaning toward B. But to show you why it's B and not the others, let's look at a visual of it. If we're at 15 degrees on the number line scale, and we go from that point all the way back to -12, This is a very long distance. Okay. This is not just a 3-degree drop. Okay. 3 degrees would land you at 12. Right. That's a 3-degree drop. So we're definitely going back a lot further than that. Add 24 more to that, right? Because from there to there is 15. This section is 15 on its own. And then another 12 back. That's their sum, which is 27, which is why it's this one. Not positive because it didn't go up. It was negative. We dropped in temperature. All right, let's go to the last page. We're almost done here. So third set of questions from your quiz is on this section has some more fractions thrown at you. So let's look at those. Make myself a little space. And we're looking at number 12. Okay, so number 12, just straight up addition of fractions. So a little review for those of you that haven't done this in a while without a calculator. You have to get like denominators. So we want to change this to where um, you have a common denominator. And we look at the 8 and the 4 and we're like, okay, our LCD is 8. 8 and 4 have a common multiple of 8. So we don't have to change the 5/8, but we do need to change the 3/4. So we're going to change this to be 8 over something over 8. And the second one doesn't have to change. So I'm running into my little window over here. That one doesn't have to change. But the first one does. Okay, so let's talk about how this works because some of you forget this. What did you do to the 4 to get to the 8 multiplication wise? You doubled it. So you need to do the same to the 3. So it becomes its new value, which is 6/8. And now you can just add the numerators. 5 plus 6 is 11. So you get 11/8 for your answer, which if you look over here, it actually leaves it in improper form, which is fine. So you can just pick C. You don't have to change it to 1 3/8 or anything like that. Okay, let's look at the next one, number 13. Okay, we got -1/2, and we're adding 2/3. So this time we have to do another change. We got to change them. And our denominator this time is going to be not 2, not 3, because they don't go into each other. We're going to pick the number 6. And the reason why I'm picking 6 is because that is the first time that 3 and 2's multiples run into each other by skip counting. So we're going to change these to 6. So we ask ourselves, well, what did we do to that 3 to get 6? Well, we doubled it. So we need to double the 2. And that gives us 4. And then we ask ourselves, what did we do to the 2? What did we do to the 2 to get to 6? Well, that was a triple. 2 times 3 is 6. So we need to triple the -1. And -1 tripled is -3. So we have our new situation over here. We know that our denominator is going to be 6, and we have to do -3 plus 4 to find out what the numerator is. And that's a review of what we just did on the previous problems, right? Different signs, positive wins by 1 in this particular case. So we had to subtract 4 and 3, and we get 1, 6. And that's the positives winning, and that's why we select A for that answer. All right, moving on to number 14. All right, numero 14. We got 2/4 being added to -5/4. And luckily we have the same denominator, so no problem there. We have to do 2 plus -5 in the numerator. And the negatives win this battle, and the signs are different, so we're subtracting 5 minus 2 to get our answer of 3. But the negatives win, so this is -3/4, which would be right here. And let's finish this off with number 15. If the temperature in Chicago is 5 degrees below, and the temperature in Moscow is 8 degrees colder, that's going even lower. What's the temperature in Moscow? Let's number line it. If this is the temperature in Chicago, and we have to go 8 lower from that, then essentially we have to add 8 and 5 because what's happening is we're here and we're adding 8 degrees less, right? So same signs, add them together. 8 and 5 make 13. So this would put us at 13 below in Moscow, which would be B. I mean, none of the other answers even make sense, right? If it's colder, it has to be more left on the number line. And none of these other numbers are more left. Only B is. So that's why we picked that one. And guys, that's your video for today. I hope it was helpful. If you were struggling, get those up to 90%. Similar type of lessons next week. There will be changes coming for this third week that we have of NTI, where we do some new material. And some of you are probably looking forward to something new. Others probably are appreciating the review. So however you're looking at it, I hope you're well, and I hope that these videos are helpful to you. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day and a good weekend.